Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
It's time to stand up, speak out, get involved, and let's be intentional.
Hello and welcome to Intentional. I am your host, Mick Meow. Thanks for taking some time to be with us today. I am glad that you tuned in, and I pray that you are blessed beyond belief wherever you are today. If you are catching us right now live, please be sure and drop a comment in the chat box. Let's go ahead and connect. Also, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe, maybe hit the like button a few times, share out this interview. We really appreciate it when you do that. So thanks in advance. Now, before we jump into the show today, if you are a teacher, a police officer, a first responder, or just a good Samaritan on the road, because of the massive fentanyl crisis that is plaguing our nation, we really need to be prepared on how to combat it. So please watch this. Hey, I want to be real serious with you. One of the biggest scourges caused by the open border crisis is the flow of uncontrolled fentanyl. 70% of last year's overdose deaths were attributed to fentanyl. It is 100 times more potent than morphine. 2 grains can and will kill you. At the fentanyl test, they have created the first test that can detect deadly fentanyl down to 1 nanogram per milliliter. Because every life is precious. Go to thefentanyltest.com and use promo code MEOW for your 10% discount off your order today. Okay, it's time for us to be intentional. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a bit raw today. It happens. Our Department of Justice has decided that going after and imprisoning Dr. Kirk Moore, a physician, a Navy veteran who stood against unconstitutional mandates during the height of tyrannical government overreach, is more important than releasing all of the information and digging in deep into the Jeffrey Epstein files. What happened on the Lolita Express, Epstein Island, and what about his connections to intelligence agencies? Oh no, nothing to see there, but a Utah plastic surgeon being accused of issuing fake vaccine cards, discarding COVID vaccines, and administering saline shots to minors. That is worthy of our tax dollars being spent. By the way, to all of those allegations, Dr. Moore has denied any wrongdoing to reporters like Brianna Morello. You know, what about the removal of the most lethal drugs used in hospitals for COVID? That's another thing that is leaving me a bit on the raw side today. Remdesivir, also known as Veklury, this has gone silent from the lips of our HHS Secretary Kennedy. Yeah, he's got a lot on his plate. I'll give you that. But it was scorched earth, medical freedom rally movement and moments during the campaign. Watch this.
You want to treat them at home. Give them the things that we know kill viral replication. Zinc and anything that enhances zinc, like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and 100 other remedies that we now know dramatically reduce the spread of this disease. And what was our protocol? Our protocol was to do none of that. No treatment until you go to the hospital. And then your treatment are two things that are bound to kill you: ventilators and remdesivir. And Tony Fauci knew that remdesivir would kill you. He knew that because in 2019, he tried to use it for Ebola. 2019. He tried to use it for Ebola, and within 5 days of treatment, it gave lethal side effect to 54% of the people, and the Safety Monitoring Board ordered him to terminate the use of that drug. And he, through a phony, contrived, absolutely fraudulent study that he manipulated and orchestrated, got that drug made standard of care. It is homicide. And if you look, how does it kill people? 2 ways, 3 ways: kidney failure, heart failure, and all organ collapse. And what happened to the people who died in the pandemic? What were they dying of? Kidney failure. All the doctors said, you heard it again and again, we've never seen a virus that attacks the kidneys. Because it wasn't the virus. It was the remdesivir.
Folks, I have spent a lot of time talking about COVID, the psychological bioterrorism with the death tickers instilling fear in everyone, the lack of early treatment being provided where people were told, hey, go home, and if you can't breathe, go to the hospital. Once admitted, the protocols were initiated. People were isolated from their families during the most vulnerable times in their life when they are sick. They were given a one-option track for therapy that included the highly lethal drug remdesivir. They were placed on pressurized, non-invasive ventilation devices called BiPAP, loaded with sedatives and narcotics. Soon they were intubated, made a do not resuscitate, and per the CDC, 1.2 to 1.6 million Americans died in the hospitals with a diagnosis of COVID. How many received the protocols and died? Yeah, it bothers me at night. Truly, it does. And this is still the CDC management pathway for COVID treatment today. Now, here's the twist in my side: the Shera versus Ascension healthcare case. A 19-year-old beautiful girl with Down syndrome who had the mental capacity of a 7 to 11-year-old enters the hospital with a diagnosis of COVID. The protocols initiated minus remdesivir, and she dies. What did we learn? What was the takeaway? Well, if you didn't catch the trial, in a nutshell, what was exposed was that there was a huge lack of informed consent and communication by nurses and physicians to the family, which included reaction to treatments, plans of care, and no real-time access to medical records. Words like pre-authorization for ventilation was used, which then became transcribed into orders of do not intubate and do not resuscitate, unbeknownst to the family. Patient rights and advocacy were pushed to the side in the name of health and pandemic crisis. So today, I ask you the question: when you are admitted to the hospital, are you vulnerable or are you prepared? To help us break this down today, we have a phenomenal guest, Laura Bartlett, with us. Laura is an advocate who has helped hundreds of families obtain appropriate informed consent, get the necessary treatment, or become released from the hospital so that they can heal at home through the utilization of specific tools, documentation, which are documents, and they equip that individual to assert their autonomy and prioritize people over protocols. So welcome with me, Laura Bartlett. Hi, Laura. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'm so sorry I was on a bit of a rant there. I'm
Hey, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, great.
I'm ranting along.
I'm telling you, there are this is such a necessary topic. So I am grateful that you are with us today. And my concern, and the point that I'm really trying to make, Laura, is that regardless of what happens on the federal level, on the local level,
Right.
we the people have to be prepared for future hospital admissions. We have to be in control of our bodies and know our rights, because in my opinion, there is another pathogenic or biological pandemic in the future at some point in time.
Right.
Yeah,
they're not one and done. Mm-mm.
yeah, right on. Now, I before we jump in, I want to kind of give our audience a little bit of background. I want them to become familiar with you and your journey. So, if you don't mind, just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got into the avenue of being an advocate for patient rights.
Okay. Well, I'm an outsider, and I think sometimes you need outsiders to affect change. And I'm a true outsider. I don't come from the medical background profession in the slightest bit, other than being a patient every now and then, as we all are. But my brother is Dr. Richard Bartlett. So when I heard of COVID early 2020, it didn't affect me really. I wasn't scared. I kind of saw it for what it was early, like in March, April, that this seems a little funny. But because of proximity to my brother, Dr. Richard Bartlett, with the budesonide protocol for COVID, I was made aware that there was something that was working when there was this little gap between hydroxychloroquine, there was nothing, and then there was the idea of ivermectin. So that little gap presented itself where everybody didn't know what to do. And my brother had this solution of budesonide, and he said, Laura, it's working. I'm seeing people that are coming in with COVID, and I'm giving them this budesonide, and it's like taking care of it, like immediately they're feeling like they can breathe, which is the problem. And then within like 3 days, they're recovered. Can you help me get this known? And my background is PR, marketing. I'm an entrepreneur. I am an executive producer of a comedy troupe in Dallas for over 15 years. And so I have this wheelhouse that he wanted to tap into to get budesonide known to the world. And so within 24 hours, I said yes. And I got him a segment on the local news, and then that parlayed into a viral video on a podcast in Dallas through kind of circuitously through a contact of mine. And that went viral with 5 million views, and then budesonide was known. So once I was kind of in that space of COVID, not because I was actively seeking it, I just kind of got swept into the current of COVID. And because I was so loud and noisy on social media about budesonide, people associated me with a solution and started reaching out to me when they were in the hospital needing help. And so my first hospital rescue was in November 2020. Again, I wasn't looking to do this, but somebody contacted me that knew somebody that was close to me. And they said, there's a gentleman in New Jersey. He needs help with his dad. He's not doing good. Can we give him your number? And I'm like, okay. At that point, I never said I did rescues. And that was my first successful rescue. He got out of there with his hospital gown on and his Foley catheter still attached, because he went with a UTI, urinary tract infection. And so got him out, I had to arrange all the things behind the scenes, the doctor to connect him to the budesonide, get the nebulizer at home, get the oxygen delivered, shipped to his doorstep through prescription outside the hospital. Anyway, it was a lot, but got it done. And then I felt responsible for this gentleman. So I would call him every 2 hours around the clock for at least 48 hours trying to make sure the guy was getting his treatment, because I didn't want him to die, since it was my suggestion, get him out. So anyway, he survived, and that was my first one. And then it just kind of, you get confident. And when people start bringing their new problem to you that was hospital related, you just go, okay, we got to get these people out. I mean, it was horrific stories I was hearing. And so that's kind of my background. I was successful getting them either budesonide, get the doctor, who I affectionately call like a terrorist. It was like doing hostage negotiations with the doctor. The family would have me on the phone with the doctor, and I would suggest budesonide at a certain dose with the family's request. At their request, I was just kind of their mediator, if you will. I call it hostage negotiator. But I would talk with the doctor, get him what he needed, talk the doctor out of comfort care or hospice in some cases when they just arrived hours earlier. They were wanting to call these people terminal. And so anyway, a lot of different little strategies and things, but happy to say that the people who were not already on a ventilator had a better chance, obviously. And there were some people who were on ventilators, and I got them transferred to another hospital, got them off ventilators. But it was a big old deal. And I realized through that journey that rather than fight your way out of a hostage situation, like being a POW and trying to, wait till the guards are, not looking in the towers and the lights aren't on you, and you've got to arrange, the dummy that looks like you in the bed and then crawl through the razor wire. Instead of having to do all that, why don't you just go into the facility, the hospital, with the right armor, which is documentation that tells them under no circumstances do you give me X, Y, and Z, remdesivir, X, Y, and Z, or vaccines, any vaccine, any drug you don't want, any narcotic that you don't want. You just go ahead and preemptively put it in writing, and we'll talk about that. But that is what I learned, is that it is so much easier for people to have not only a chance of not dying, but they report back that they have the best experience they've ever gotten in a hospital. And so it's not just for survival, it's for optimal experiences in a hospital. So I haven't heard it fail yet, and nobody gets what they don't want. And the doctors are highly motivated to treat you differently.
Yeah. I bet they are, because they know that there's somebody there who understands, or at least has the ability to say, no, this is my body and this is my rights. I just want to say, first of all, I love your brother, Dr. Bartlett. I interviewed him. We were in Vegas at the Reawaken tour there, and he had done a little interview with me about budesonide, and it was fire. I'm going to have to repost it after this, because he was on fire, and I loved it. And then he also talked with me when he was helping the Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. My friend is Crystal Bowles, and they were fighting and they finally got partially passed House Bill 73, the Dave and Angie Patient and Health Provider Protection Act. A little bit of a mouthful there, sorry. But you are both definitely a family of medical freedom warriors. And so, first of all, thank you, because it is truly needed, Laura, truly. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that somebody partnered up with me that had this brilliant idea of documentation. We got connected after I'll call it a failed rescue. The doctor had given this patient fentanyl every 30 minutes without the PRN, without the family's knowledge. The gentleman was on a ventilator, so it's not like he could say, hey, can you give me some fentanyl, or get informed consent. And so they didn't know this until after they got the records. And you want to do things in a certain order, get get into that medical record immediately. Everybody listening, that's a huge part of your being safe, is know what they're giving you, when they're giving it to you, how they're giving it to you, the route, the frequency, all that, the dose. But there shouldn't be something in your record that you did not get the risk benefits of and then give yes or no consent to. And this gentleman didn't, I knew he didn't get informed consent because he had had a double knee surgery, the family tells me, after the fact. And he didn't take any pain medicine for that. So it couldn't have been for pain. And there was no pain scale noted in his record. So he was given fentanyl every 30 minutes. And I had it. After that one, I was talking with this hospital insider who is affectionately we call this anonymous insider, hospital insider, without divulging or doxing this person. But I said, this needs to be nipped in the bud. We need a way to preemptively tell that doctor under no circumstances are you going to do remdesivir if that's not what you want, or a vaccine or a drug or whatever. And he needs to know the consequences. And I said, I want in this new document, I want at the top a warning to him, just in clear black and white, that if you violate any part of my clearly worded, wishes, my intentional wishes, then you will be reported to the state medical board. And that gets their attention. I said, I want that to get their attention immediately. And that's baked into this document. But then there were some other things that evolved as we were percolating the idea of how you preemptively protect yourself and how you motivate that doctor to not just go along to get along with the hospital. And the lever is, as everybody knows, doctors have a license to kill during COVID. They have a license to lose. And in a family full of physicians, I know what a pain that is to get a medical board complaint, especially when it's bogus. So, kind of like Jesus, I'm going to flip the tables. And what was meant for bad against good doctors, like my brother, we're going to use it appropriately. And we're going to flip it onto the people who are they are just violating, abusing patients and their right to say, I don't want this. So that's baked into the contract, but also, I don't know if you want to get into the religious part of it.
Yeah, I do. I want to kind of dig into the I do not consent forms. And everybody, we're scrolling that website so that you can actually download those forms. But I'd love it if you could kind of walk us through what they are, how they protect the sovereign souls, and what is the process that people should take. Also, Laura, we have the forms. So just let me know when it's a good time. We'll pull those up, and because I want the audience to see them. And also, anybody who's out there, if you've got a comment, please drop it in the chat so that we can make that connection if you have any questions. And Laura, I'm going to toss it to you because we want to hear all about these.
Okay, first of all, right off the bat, this is not an advance directive. This is not a medical power of attorney. Let's just get that out of the way. People who've used paperwork during COVID are just not informed if they think their paperwork didn't work and it was this. It didn't exist towards the beginning of COVID. This is something that was born out of COVID, out of necessity, never existed before. There were things called advanced directives. Advanced directives are not this. Advanced directives are kind of what they imply. It's in advance towards the end of your, you're at the end of your capacity. You're incapacitated. You're on a ventilator before legally they have to honor that. So all those advanced directives, people were well-intentioned, but they didn't protect you when you first walked in the door. And it only takes 5 minutes to put a needle in your arm of a vaccine or start an IV of remdesivir. So we wanted to protect people through the beginning of their hospital stay all the way through. And so if you let them know at the beginning of your journey, I don't want any of this during any part of my stay, not just when I'm on a ventilator and incapacitated. This is for when you can say, I don't want to, with your mouth, and You have the mental capacity to say it. So let's get that out of the way. This is a novel idea born from it's a brainchild of a attorney, health law expert, over a decade of experience as an insider to the hospital at the highest administrative level, only answer to the CEO. So of one of the largest markets for the medical industrial complex in America. So this idea is a God thing. This person was listening to God. This idea just came through this person, all credit to God. But this is so novel because everybody who went into the hospital with COVID at a certain point knew something was not right and wanted to stop it, and they couldn't stop it. It was like a runaway freight train, no fault of their own. So what they needed was somebody to actually respect. And when I say somebody, that doctor, that's all, the only person we're talking about right here. We're not talking about Fauci. We're not talking about Tedros. We're not talking about anybody else but the guy at the end of your bed directing care with a license, and that's the doctor. He's the guy who could have stopped remdesivir or started something like budesonide, right? And so, so that guy needed to be motivated. And through God, we got this idea how to stop him from now or any other future pandemic that they're planning. Doesn't matter what it's called, the turkey flu, I joke, the sloth pox. It doesn't matter, because if you can stop that guy, it takes that guy or that gal who has a medical license to carry out evil plans. If you remove the doctor, the quote hospital structure, the powers to be that are nefarious, they can't carry out their plans. It takes a doctor. So we have just the thing to stop him, because he doesn't want to lose his license. He doesn't want to go to jail. He doesn't want a lawsuit that he can't win. So with that said, the reason why we came up with this is because we need your current wishes right now. The moment you're a patient, they start a record on you. It doesn't matter if you sign the general consent. The general consent is kind of a business agreement with the hospital, and also to start care. You got to have that signed. There might be some verbiage in there. Just know this, that even though you sign the general consent, you get to have your own contract with the doctor. Bring your own contract. Don't just take whatever they give you as the best deal in town. No, bring your own with your terms, what you want, what you don't want, in writing, and you're going to get it notarized. So the point is that general consent sometimes has some nefarious verbiage in there. Like, if
Producer,
you...
let's go ahead and pull those up. Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Okay, so the general consent, everybody says, okay, but I signed a general consent. I'm done for. I already agreed. You agreed to start business, and there might be some funny business in there, like the doctor or care provider has the right, you're giving them consent preemptively to let them do whatever they want to you, give you a drug, give you a vaccine, that's why you need this, because you can't read every little letter and interpret what their new term is for things. And at the moment it's biologics. That's one of the words that they use, and most people aren't looking for that. So bring your own thing, and it's a carve out contract specifying, detailing a customized, itemized menu of sorts, saying, I don't want this vaccine or that drug, this treatment. I only want ventilation if you first explain it to me and get my consent, not just as a COVID treatment. So, okay, why does this work? Why is this different than any other paperwork you've ever seen? Because there's one group, this is the God part, there's one group of people who had a religious belief that when they asserted that their belief made it impossible for them to want blood or blood products, blood transfusions, they didn't get it. Okay, for over 5 decades, there's a precedent that if you appeal to your religious and spiritual beliefs, like the Jehovah Witness do for declining blood, it works. Should you have to do that? No, but I live in reality. You should be able to just say, don't do this to me, and they honor it. But we know through COVID, they don't. So we're going to have to ratchet it up a bit, pick it up a notch, and appeal to what works. And the Jehovah Witness have a pretty bulletproof way of not getting something they don't want. So now we've adapted what they do, they've done for decades, and it's anytime it's challenged in court and been argued all the way up to the Supreme Court, guess what? They've won. So we thought that's a pretty good idea. And so this document's based on that model. And so we actually have in the verbiage that this is my carefully planned and intentional wishes. Intentional. Remember the Scott Scherer case with his daughter? You mentioned it at the beginning. They were trying to get a verdict of guilty for intentional. Well, there's no better way of catching somebody doing wrong, violating your intentional wishes, than putting it in writing that these are my intentional wishes and having it notarized at the bottom. So it's a legal document and then put into your electronic medical record. So if he had had that, in my strong opinion, this would not have been the verdict that happened, which was that he was the doctor, the nurses, the hospital were all shown to be not guilty. And it would have been a slam dunk, in my opinion, had you had evidence, proof that they not only knew about it, it was documented, it was a legal document, it was notary, you signed it from a notary, so you can prove it was me, and that one of these things or didn't want these things, and then it's in your electronic medical record as part of your permanent record. Okay, it would have been over, case closed. This would not be a cold case, as they say in those CSI shows. This would have been a done, 100% slam dunk, guilty verdict.
Now, you said it's part of the medical record.
Yes.
So we're showing the form. How do people get that to be? Because you talked about that it was notarized, and then you hand it, so it's done prior to, it's notarized.
I'll walk you through. Okay, we got to back up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Okay, this is very. It's okay. Those are great questions. People are like, when they grasp this, they go, "This is awesome. I think I'll just go ahead and send it to the hospital right now." Don't do that until you are actively a patient. Okay, the timing is important. You got to get this. Okay, you're going to prepare it ahead of time. Like, say I'm in Starbucks right now in Texas. I could fill it out right now. I will wait until I get in front of a notary, like at a bank where I bank, because it's free, and have them, stamp it and date it. I won't sign it until I'm in front of a notary, and then I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it until I am a patient. But in the interim, I am going to have conversations with my people, my trusted ones, my friends, my family, and I'm going to say, "Hey, I did this document. You should do it too." I'll give them a copy, and we'll trade. They'll give me a copy of theirs. I'll give you a copy of mine that's been notarized and signed, and I'll say, "Hey, I'll be your person if you'll be mine. If you're in a hospital, I'll do this next step for you. You just give me a call. You text me from the emergency room, and I'll do it for you." What is that do it for you part? It's getting this sent to the hospital CEO. This is also a God idea. And only somebody who worked in those circles, a attorney at the highest levels of administration working for CEO, would know this, that guy is the guy that's going to be highly motivated to put this into the electronic medical record, because it's his job. His job is tasked over medical records, making sure everything is spick and span there. So if he gets something by courier in an envelope put on his desk, it's going to be top priority. I better see what this is. And it says, it says at the top, we'll just start reading the letter, that to all healthcare providers for patient named with date of birth. This is the cover letter that's on the screen that goes along with the document. And it has all these different, you tell me if this would get your attention. And all representative subsidiaries, parent companies, attorneys, chief of staff, chief quality officer, medical executive committee, board of trustees, care of, chief executive officer of the hospital. Don't need to know his name. Just need to know his title. It'll get there. I think that might get a few people's attention, don't you? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so all these people are on notice now, okay? And this letter tells them that this attached caregivers and consent document, that's what this is called. Please ensure that this gets into this document is clearly accessible in the electronic medical record at all times for all healthcare providers. Thank you in advance for your attention to this matter. And then it's signed, and you're going to have the notary stamp. You're not going to sign it until you're in front of a notary, okay? That goes along with this document, and your person will put it in an envelope. It's going to be labeled CEO, hospital name, where you told them when you were in the ER, I'm at this hospital, it's at this address. Because sometimes hospitals have different addresses, different branches. And they're going to then pick up the phone, and they're going to find a courier. You're going to go online, you're going to find a courier, and you're going to have a conversation with that courier service. People who deliver documents. It doesn't have to be a lawyer's office. Don't do that. They'll charge you $500. It should cost you about $30-$50. You can pay your friend back when you're out of the hospital. But if they're a friend, they don't mind. It's going to save your life. And that person's going to courier it to the hospital. They're going to get why do we do that? Because we want a signature that someone signed for it and it's dated. Now you've got the receipts. They can't say they didn't see it. If you just handed it to the doctor, he could go, I don't want this, and throw it in the trash like so many did during COVID.
Right.
Now they're on the hook. Now we've got the proof. So then the clock starts ticking for them to get that into the electronic medical record. For all care providers, pulmonologists, cardiologists, your attending physician, nurses, anybody attending to your care in the hospital knows that, they know if it's mine, I don't want remdesivir. I do not consent to it. I also don't consent to the pneumococcal vaccine, the flu vaccine, the whatever new one they come up with, like I said, slothpox vaccine. I don't want the COVID vaccine. I don't want any of it. And there's an option. I don't want any vaccines, to make it clear. Okay. So they're going to get that. And then there's a backup redundant way to get a receipt, and that's to send it certified mail, return receipt requested. Okay. So say you don't have any friends. You're not out of luck. You still can do this. I had friends, but I'd never like to bother people. So this would probably work for me. I would, a very independent person, single mom, when I went in for my emergency appendectomy, I drove myself to the hospital in the middle of the night.
Whoa.
I also drove myself home afterwards. It's just the way it is sometimes for people. So,
right.
So what I would do if that had happened now, and I had this document, I would send myself a copy on my cell phone. I'd have it in an email so that when I'm in the emergency room waiting for them to put me in a room, I would, after I signed the general consent and sitting and waiting for my name to be called, like at an IKEA return center, I would have time to look up the courier, which I should have already kind of had an idea of where these courier services are. And I'd have a call and say, hi, I'm in the emergency room. I need some medical documentation sent to the hospital within 30 minutes. Can you do that? Oh, it'll be an hour at the earliest. Okay. Whatever, as soon as possible. If that person said 5 hours tomorrow, next day, go to the next courier. Find one that will work with you quickly. And you're going to say, I'm going to email it to you. And I would just forward that email that I'd already had my phone. So you can do this by yourself. And then it's out of sight, out of mind. They handle it for you. And then you go back to them and say, I want that receipt if they didn't give it to you. I want the signature, proof, and date that they received this. Okay.
Right on.
All right. So then what are they going to get? They're going to know that it's your intentional wishes. They know a warning. The doctor who sees this in your medical record will know that it's your intentional wishes, that if you were to violate it, PrEP isn't going to protect you. Okay. PrEP Act, if nobody knows what that is, gave a lot of leeway for bad behaviors by doctors. They could literally neglect you, and they can commit malpractice, and there's no legal recourse. The only leg really to stand on for people to have any kind of legal ramifications to the doctor and the hospital is this one clause nobody talks about in PrEP, which is willful misconduct. Well, I think we got that with this. If you violate this, when you've been served, you've been noticed, that's a legal term, It's in your medical record, and it's a notarized document. I can prove it was me that said all these things. Couldn't do that when you wrote no remdesivir on your arm with a Sharpie. I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
not going to work. Didn't work. Okay, a lot of people were suggesting that. I'm sorry, good intentions, but it doesn't work. You got to have it black and white, just like when you sign your lease for your house or for your housing, or you bought a home, you do a business deal. It's some paper. It's in black and white. That's
And
why
I
my
love
website's
that you're
black and
bringing
white.
this. And I love that you're bringing the CEO in there. I mean, you are telling them at the top levels,
Mhm.
hey, this is my wishes, and it's on the medical record. So that should be part of, or at least, you know, every
Yeah.
place I ever worked in my nursing care,
Mhm.
you had those records in front of you. You looked and you saw, so nobody can miss this.
The cover letter instructs them what to do with it. It's very obvious, and you might be asking yourself, well, why would a CEO care if they kind of want this whole ruse to go along and they don't want to hold a doctor? Why would they do it? Well, because the hospital doesn't want to get sued, because
right.
this is part of patient care. It could be very tangential. It could be, I'm allergic to latex, and it didn't get into the record, and you touched them with latex gloves, or you gave them a drug that they're highly allergic to, or in food service, you delivered a meal to their room and it had something that would cause anaphylactic shock. Okay, so they don't want to take any chances. The CEO is highly motivated. He doesn't want that liability. He doesn't want to get sued by the doctor. And so he will push that liability onto the doctor as quick as he can. And so that's why it works. Now, the doctor, what gets their attention? Intentional, spiritual, and religious beliefs. Every doctor, every nurse is trained that you don't give blood to Jehovah Witness. Why not?
Right.
Well, it's because it's based on their religious beliefs. And it's been upheld all the way to the Supreme Court. So we appeal to that too, and they understand that language. And so they're not going to violate and take any chances with this one. There may be, hundreds of other ones they'll do it to, but not somebody who comes before them with this kind of documentation that says right now, not when I'm on a ventilator, right now, you don't give me that.
That's right. I want to touch on something because you've brought it up a couple times. The Jehovah's Witness. Now, I worked oncology. I'm very familiar with the rights of Jehovah's Witness and their refusal of blood products. And we used to use a lot of like erythropoiesis stimulating agents, and it was always a little bit of I'm going to say a red tape run to get some of this through, but it seemed like there were things that came up people would call ethical perspectives. They would say, oh, there's legal concerns, and things that they would bring up was it's a life-threatening situation, and if I don't give the blood, it's going to violate the doctor's moral obligation. The patients have a right up to a point, then they can be overruled. They would call into question if somebody was competent. So we saw that during COVID. We saw a lot of coercion. I'm going to use that word because it was. And, there was total medical tyranny. Nobody disputes that. Removal of rights. So what do you say? How do people respond to that? How do they push back on that?
Well, we answer that in the document because there's an opportunity for doctors to have conversations, and we highly respect and actually we hope they do that. We hope doctors have a conversation, even if it's on here. They can have a conversation. They could say, for instance, I know you said that you did not want, say it's morphine, say it's something for pain, and they don't want to be treated like a hospice patient when they first walk in for pink eye and be given morphine. So they might, some people might be motivated to say no morphine because I've seen these doctors over drug people, right? But they might change their mind, say they got in a chainsaw accident, right? And or needed emergency surgery after they got in for whatever they were there for. And morphine is a pain medication, right? You can use it for pain. So they might change their mind. The doctor might say, you know, you don't want to be have a pain scale of 12 on a 1 to 10 and not have something for that. Can I please tell you the risk benefits of morphine? And it might change your mind. But that conversation is welcome. It's encouraged, and it's actually encouraged in the document that you will have a conversation, for instance, about being on a ventilator, because there's appropriate times to be on a ventilator. Now, some people might even have, so that's taken care of. In the doctor's moral dilemma, he can have a conversation that might assuage his moral dilemma for whatever it is, even if it was remdesivir and it wasn't something as obvious as blood, which I don't even put the two in the same category, because blood has always, when you have a blood volume problem, is the solution, right? Or a fluid level problem. Remdesivir killed over half of the people in the failed Ebola trial. Okay, so it was not something that was intuitive for a solution. That it caused kidney failure. It primed you for the ventilator, which gave you a 10% chance of surviving. So I don't even put them in the same category, but just for the sake of argument, being devil's advocate, I'll say, even if you as a doctor believed in remdesivir, that it would say, have that conversation. But if it's on here, you've got to respect this. If they do not change their mind, and the only way they could say, I changed my mind, is in writing. We even covered that because we didn't want any monkey business with doctors tricking patients as they were going to sleep, just as they're closing their eyes. And then the doctor says, what was that? As the person's talking in their sleep. And then they go back to their medical record and say, patient murmured, yes, I want remdesivir. We've seen stuff like that. So, right. So that's how we cover that, is it's got to be revoked only in writing. We didn't want the nurse to have the upper hand, because they have the medical record. They're the ones who put the notes in, not you. This is your one chance to make your case known, is to walk in with the terms of your agreement. You've heard of the art of the deal? This is your art of the deal. These are your terms. You're laying them out, saying absolutely no to these things. Okay,
I love that.
So that's how you get around the moral dilemma. And by the way, there's a story that our insider has told us, which is firsthand knowledge of somebody that was bleeding out, a young mother, a very young mother, a small child, and she was in a car wreck. And this insider was privy to the fact that this mother did not get blood as a Jehovah's Witness, because that was what she did not want. It was her belief. We got to honor that. That's bodily autonomy. And she passed. Her husband was not a Jehovah's Witness and wanted her to have blood. They had to uphold. This is how strong it is. Even though the husband's like, save her. They had to uphold her religious belief not to get blood, because she was a Jehovah's Witness. Well, you can't discriminate against Laura Bartlett. I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior. That's my belief. It might not be exactly the same as somebody else's belief, but it would be discriminatory if you discriminate against me just because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness and I don't believe exactly or identify myself as a Jehovah's Witness. So they know that. They know they can't discriminate. You appeal to the same thing they appeal to, which was not that I'm a Jehovah's Witness, but that I have a strong religious and spiritual belief that I don't want these things.
Let me ask you this, because one of my friends, Dr. Ferranti,
she says hi, by the way. She texted me just now.
Hi.
Because I love her.
I do too. And she came up with, or had talked to, me. I think we were all on an X Space together. You were there too. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about a document where the family, the patient in real time can document what they saw. And I know it's a discovery item, but it's kind of the point. And I think that's phenomenal. I know people who did video documentation, when they were allowed in, or if they were, able to sneak in, because it had to happen. So what about that? Will that something like that be added? Is that something we can look forward to? And what are your thoughts on that?
Dr. Ferranti's doing that. Margaret, Dr. She likes to be called Margaret. Dr.
Yeah.
Ferrante is working on that. She's so cool.
She is. I love her.
And she's right on top of it. I mean, she's, of all the doctors that I've ever connected with, even family aside, she gets it.
Yeah.
She gets it. And that was a wonderful catch that she found during the Scott Shara case, that the sister, who was the medical power of attorney, Jessica, had been keeping a diary, and it made its way into the evidence. And so she's working on that. She's actually working on that right now to make
Good.
something like a template that would allow you to keep notes of who prescribed, or who, what was the suggested drug, what did we discuss, what was the dosage, all that stuff that I'm not even privy to. She's working on that, but that would be a good idea. But you know what? Ahead of all the tips, and I have tips that I could give you as a patient advocate that are helpful, but let me tell you, they're nothing. They pale in comparison. You don't need to constantly be using these ideas, which never got anybody bulletproof protected, like having this. You don't have to negotiate your way out. I could say, you could fire your doctor. I could say that, but why would you fire your doctor if he's just doing this? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. And we saw during COVID, I can't tell you how many interviews I've done where people said, I fired my doctor every day. And the next day they were back.
No, we don't want to have to just do a rinse and repeat every day of the same bad behavior. Just get them to do the right behavior, because they're highly motivated to keep their license and not go to jail.
And the one thing that I think that's such a valid point. You called it a silver bullet. I think that's a valid point. How do we get this into the hands of as many Americans as we can? And the reason why I'm putting it that way, I know they can go to your website, idonotconsent.com.
Form
right?
at the end. I do not consent form, FORM.
Okay. Perfect. And I think, is that how we have it on our ticker? I do not consent form.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. I just want to make sure, because I want everybody to have these, and I want to see if there is another inroad. Has there been, because you've got, your documents are recommended by some very large voices in the medical freedom movement. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, Children's Health Defense, come on. So have you gotten any inroads into things like maybe hospital boards, hospital authorities, a parallel healthcare system, so that we can move forward, because we know they're not done.
Hospitals, here's the thing, is that hospitals want to meet their metrics, their business.
Yeah, right.
Their metrics for payouts for vaccines, or for remdesivir, the COVID protocol. They made money. They don't seem to be so interested in patient rights or patient's autonomy. No. So those aren't the people that we want to appeal to. We really just need the grassroots, right? It's not going to come from top down. This is going to be a grassroots up. Okay. This is going to be literally, we the people, we put the locks on our front door. We put the Ring cameras on our front door. We don't go to the real estate companies or the construction boards and say, can I have a lock on my door? We take the responsibility for our own home protection, home defense. It's going to be we the people pushing up. And, the insider estimates that if like 5 or 10 of these per hospital were to circulate around, because they would, from being a nurse, that that doctor who received it would then share it within his concentric circles, his community. If he's in a certain specialty, he probably will talk among his peers, or even just his cronies. He would talk within his friends and cohorts. So it would proliferate that way, where there's this thing called a current caregivers and consent form. Don't mess with those people. I'm telling you, they've got intentional wishes on there. It's notarized. They'll chatter, and before you know it, it will change things in the hospital, because it'll make its way up into the executive committees, and they will say, we cannot risk a lawsuit. If anybody gets one of these, it'll be talked about. It'll make its way up from the patient to their physician at the end of their bed, all the way up to the executive committee, the board. And it'll be something they talk about in meetings, because our insider used to be in those meetings and can say very factually that it will be talked about.
Oh, I bet.
It will affect
I can
change.
just hear it in grand rounds right now.
Yeah.
You know,
It'll affect change for the
Yeah.
for the good of the people. But it's going to take us. Don't look for like top down. Don't look for like the WHO, the CDC, the Health and Human Services. It's going to be us doing this, and it doesn't take a lot of work. Somebody with a minimal amount of education can do it. If you can sign an agreement for your phone, okay? Everybody has agreements, even for your phone service, right? When you bought when you had signed up, I'm AT&T provider, you had to sign something. It's not hard, and it's a done for you template. So it already has a lot of the things that, hey, I've been rescuing people at hospitals. These are the things I don't want, okay? You can look into it more for yourself and make up your own mind. But these are things Laura Bartlett absolutely would initial next to everything. And by the way, you're going to initial just like a contract, because it's a contract. You're not going to put an X or a check mark. And you're going to make copies of it once it's notarized, so that you have one with you at all times in your car. You're going to have it on your phone. You're going to have it in the hands of your friends and family. And then you're going to have a stack of them with you when you go to the hospital, so you can, hey, doctor, you're sitting on the bed on that uncomfortable paper liner, you know, in your hospital gown with your legs dangling and you're freezing your butt off. You're going to hand him your copy. And if he says, I don't want this, because he's become arrogant and brazen because of COVID, and he knows PrEP lets him be a jerk, you might want to reconsider. It's on its way to the CEO right now.
I love that. I love that. You know, that is where we come in. That is where our boldness comes in. And that's where our advocates come in. Laura, I want to ask you, what do you think the future holds? I know that's a big question. I'm asking the looking in the crystal ball.
Yeah, I was going to go grab my crystal ball.
Yes, yes, grab
okay.
that.
Hit me with a question. I'm looking at it.
Yes. Okay. So, Magic 8 Ball. What do you think the future holds for this? How can we sweep this across the nation?
People like yourself, bringing awareness. Thank you so much, because it's not a sexy topic. You know, I was in business before this as an entrepreneur, and I was fortunate to get on the Today Show, you know, my product to get onto the Today Show, and Shark Tank wanted it. And, you know, all kinds of cool stuff happened around this little novel idea in the wine industry, right?
Okay.
There was so much chatter. It went viral within 24 hours of my first press release. Okay. So it was obviously something that's they call it buzzworthy in PR. This is a little different. Prevention never is as exciting as the after effects of devastation. You always see, like in Lahaina, Hawaii, you saw like the total annihilation of homes and smoldering ash. Well, cameras are always there for the carnage. This is to prevent the carnage. So when people say, you know, well, why aren't we hearing about how wonderful this is? Because it works. You're not hearing about the carnage. The people who use it, they use it, they go about their day. They get in the hospital, get out. They get their hip replacement. They get their needed back surgery after 3 or 4 botched surgeries. That was one of the people who used it and reported back. I don't always get the report back. I guarantee you I'd hear back if they said, oh my gosh, they killed my mother and she used those things. Okay. It's because it works. And I do get the occasional, hey, it was so great that I thanked the nurses on the way out. I've never had such great care, and I've been in and out of hospitals over the years. Okay, so I get that kind of feedback, and I also have this testimonial, if I can read it to you. I don't know if I shared this, but hold on just a second, let me find it. Put on my eyes. Here it is. Okay, this is a unsolicited testimonial just in the last couple of weeks. I will say this is it. Okay, I didn't want to dox this person, but that's
Yeah.
so I blocked out their name. But it says, I will have to say that my doctor honored my notarized paperwork, talking about this. They got it at a speaking event that I was at in Texas. I had a notary in the back of the room so that they could pick up their paperwork and get it notarized. Okay. Saying I did not want to be vented or to have remdesivir when I ended up in the hospital with COVID pneumonia for 6 days. Although he did not agree, that's very important to hear. He didn't agree with that with me. And I asked him to give me budesonide. I heard about through your brother. He offered it once a day, and I said I wanted it twice, and he agreed. When did you hear about that? People getting what they wanted.
Yeah.
Then I asked him for vitamin C transfusions daily, and he said he would do so if the hospital agreed. They did. I praise God for my internist, although he did recommend the vax, which I never got. Okay, so what does person? This is a testimonial you don't hear about. Not only did they not get remdesivir, the doctor was squarely for it. Did not get the ventilator. He was for that too. Got some things that nobody was able to get. Got budesonide through nebulizer, not just once a day, twice a day as she asked. Also got IV vitamin C transfusions.
Amazing.
I mean,
Amazing.
how would that
I
have
love
turned
that.
out differently if she had walked in, signed the general consent, which is basically saying, yes, I consent to whatever you think I need.
Yeah.
She would have probably gotten the remdesivir, probably all, 5-10 rounds, been on a ventilator, might not have been alive to write this. So
Absolutely. Laura, this has been amazing. I mean, I just think that this is phenomenal. Again, we want everybody to go to idonotconsentform.com. Please make sure that you download these. Make sure that you're prepared before you go into the hospital. It was an honor to have this conversation. Thank you.
It was an honor for me because you're one of the few voices that is passionate about making people prepared, not scared. And like you said, there's probably going to be something else, or you might go into the hospital and it's not one of the pandemics. It could be for, the routine, chainsaw accident or a car wreck or whatever. You blow out your knee skiing or whatever, appendectomy. You just gotta be prepared before you go in. Just have it done like people do have their wills done. Just prepare it ahead of time. Stick it in a drawer, the original. Have a copy in your car. Talk to your people. Have it on your phone, and you're done. You don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. I love it. And it's and then you are protected. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for you, Laura. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing all of this. Dr. Ferranti, Margaret, hey, got to have you on so we can talk about your form too. I just really appreciate all of you showing up today. We're going to see you next week. So remember, resistance is not futile, and blessings to you all always.
It's time to stand up, speak out, get involved, and let's be intentional.